It was one of those mornings that started off perfect, almost too perfect. I had a feeling in my gut that something was off, but I couldn't place it yet. The sun was shining through our bedroom window, casting a warm glow on our perfectly organized life. It should have been a good day. Jason, my husband of 10 years, had already left for work. As a high-powered lawyer, he was always on the go. His perfectly tailored suits and polished demeanor were like armor for his ego, always impressing people. And he was good at it, too good. I went about my routine, but the nagging feeling followed me everywhere. I scrolled through my phone, pretending I had something important to check. That's when I noticed a text from him. Short, cold, and impersonal. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. Jason used to tell me everything. The case details, his arguments, even the tension with his boss. But now, he barely said anything beyond the obligatory pleasantries. Something had changed, and it wasn't just the workload. My nerves were on edge, but I tried to keep it together. Maybe it was just stress. Lawyers have insane schedules, right? By noon, I couldn't take it anymore. I called my friend Amanda, someone who always seemed to have the right words. But this time, she didn't. Instead, her voice wavered, like she knew something I didn't. "Have you talked to Jason recently?" she asked. "Why? What's going on?" I responded, already feeling the hysteria bubbling up inside me. "Maybe nothing, or maybe something," she said, trailing off in a way that immediately pissed me off. It was a game everyone seemed to be playing lately, everyone but me. I slammed the phone down, pacing through the house like a trapped animal. The perfect marriage? A joke. It felt like everyone was whispering behind my back, waiting for me to figure out what was right in front of me. I went to Jason's office. I needed answers, and I wasn't about to wait for his text or pretend everything was fine. The moment I stepped into the building, I felt out of place, too emotional, too erratic for the pristine environment where everyone spoke in calculated tones. I barged into his office, my heart pounding, but Jason wasn't there. His assistant, a smug little thing with too much makeup, looked me up and down before offering a saccharine smile. "Oh, he's out, Mrs. Matthews. Important client meeting." Bullshit. I could feel the lies crawling all over me. My mind raced. I wasn't going to stand around like some idiot, waiting for him to come home with another excuse. If Jason was screwing around, I was going to find out, and I wasn't going to play nice about it. Part of me wanted to scream, throw something, but I held it in, for now. I knew where to go next. There was a bar nearby where lawyers from his firm hung out after hours. It was where all the gossip flowed, and I was ready to drown in it if that's what it took. I stepped into the dimly lit place, my nerves on fire. The bartender looked at me with that same judging stare, the one that said, "She doesn't belong here." But I ignored him and ordered a drink. That's when I saw him, Jason, laughing, leaning in too close to some woman in a red dress, her hand resting casually on his knee. My blood ran cold. There was Jason, the perfect husband, sitting with some woman like they were the only two people in the room. I gripped my glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. The woman was younger, of course, legs for days, with that fake, effortless charm that people like her always seem to have. She tossed her hair back, laughing at something Jason said, her fingers still casually on his knee. My heart pounded in my chest, and before I could stop myself, I stormed over. I wasn't thinking anymore. Rage had completely taken over. Jason didn't even see me coming until I was standing right next to him. "What the hell is this?" I practically screamed, causing heads to turn from every corner of the bar. Jason's face drained of color, and for a split second, I saw panic flash in his eyes. But it didn't take long for him to put on that calm, calculating lawyer mask again. The woman's smile faded as she realized who I was. "Claire, this isn't what it looks like," Jason started, his voice steady, as if he could explain his way out of this. I laughed, and it was a bitter, mocking sound. "Oh, really? Then please, enlighten me. What exactly does it look like when my husband is having drinks with some tramp while he tells me he's working late?" The woman stood up, trying to collect her things as if disappearing would somehow make the situation better. "I should go," she muttered under her breath, but I was quicker. "Oh no, sweetheart, you're staying right here. I want to hear this little story of yours." I said, glaring at her. She froze, looking to Jason for help. He stood up and grabbed my arm, trying to lead me out of the bar, his voice low and urgent. Let's talk about this somewhere else. You're making a scene. I'm making a scene? I yanked my arm out of his grip. Oh, Jason, I'm just getting started. I turned back to the woman, who was now looking like she regretted every decision that had led her to this moment. How long has this been going on? Or are you just another one-night stand in a long line of Jason's little side projects? The woman's eyes darted between me and Jason, clearly panicking. I didn't know he was married, she said quickly, her voice shaky. He told me he was single. A hollow laugh escaped me. Oh, of course he did. That's his favorite lie. I looked at Jason, my heart twisting with anger. You told her you were single? Really? Is that what you tell all of them? Claire, stop, Jason hissed through gritted teeth, his composure slipping. He wasn't used to me standing up to him like this. He was used to controlling everything. Me, the narrative, his perfect little world. But I wasn't going to be controlled anymore. Tell me, Jason, I said, my voice dripping with venom. How many more are there? Or is this the only one dumb enough to fall for your crap? He didn't answer, and that was all the confirmation I needed. I turned back to the woman, who was inching her way toward the door. You know what? You can have him, I said, waving her off. I'm done playing the good wife. Without another word, I spun around and walked out of the bar, my head held high even though I felt like I was going to explode inside. I could feel Jason following me, but I didn't stop. I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. The minute I got home, I went straight to the bedroom and started pulling his clothes out of the closet, throwing them into a pile on the floor. I heard him come in behind me, but I didn't even look at him. What the hell are you doing? He demanded, his voice finally losing that lawyerly calm. I'm packing your stuff, I said, tossing another one of his stupid designer suits onto the pile. You're moving out. Tonight. You're being ridiculous. This was just a misunderstanding, Jason said, stepping closer, but I whipped around, my eyes blazing. A misunderstanding? You've been lying to me for God knows how long, and now I'm supposed to just pretend it didn't happen? No, Jason, I'm done. He ran a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. Claire, don't do this. Let's just talk about it. We can fix this. I shook my head, the reality of everything crashing down on me. Fix this? You've been cheating on me, lying to my face, and now you want to fix it? You don't even love me anymore, do you? Jason didn't answer, and the silence was deafening. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about some random woman at a bar. This was about our entire marriage, the lies, the cracks I had ignored for years. And suddenly, I didn't care if he loved me or not. I was done being the hysterical wife, the one who kept everything together while he got to live his double life. But I wasn't going to let him leave without knowing just how much damage he had caused. The next step in my plan was going to be messy, but Jason had no idea what was coming. I stood there, surrounded by his expensive suits and carefully pressed shirts, feeling like I was standing in the middle of the wreckage of a life I had pretended was perfect for far too long. The anger pulsed through me like a living thing, refusing to let go. But now, it wasn't just about throwing Jason's clothes around or screaming in a bar. I wanted him to feel the same kind of humiliation, the same betrayal that had been gnawing at me since the moment I saw him with that woman. Jason stood in the doorway, watching me like I was some irrational force of nature that he couldn't reason with. His silence was louder than any argument he could have made. He had no defense, and he knew it. But I wasn't about to let him slink away quietly into the night with his tail between his legs. You think you can just walk out of here and go on with your life? I snapped, throwing a pair of his cufflinks onto the floor. You think this is over? His jaw clenched, and for a moment, I thought he might yell, might finally show some emotion, but instead, he sighed. Claire, this isn't going to help anything. You're only making this worse. Worse? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Oh, Jason, you haven't even begun to see worse. You've been screwing around behind my back, and you think I'm the one making things worse? Let me be clear. I'm going to ruin you. His face paled, the mask of control slipping again. What the hell does that mean? I crossed my arms, taking a deep breath to steady myself. I had always been the one keeping things together, the responsible one, the wife who made sure the image of a happy couple never cracked. But now I was done playing the part. It means I'm not going to be the one who's humiliated by this, I said, my voice cold and steady. You're the cheating husband, Jason, not me, and everyone is going to know it. I could see the panic rising in his eyes, and it gave me a twisted sense of satisfaction. For years, he had been the one in control, the one who knew how to manipulate every situation to his advantage. But now, I held the cards, and I wasn't afraid to play them. I'm going to tell everyone, I continued, walking toward him, my voice steady but dangerous. Your clients, your partners, everyone in your perfect little world. Let's see how long you keep that fancy office when everyone finds out what a lying piece of trash you are. Jason's face hardened, his expression shifting from shock to anger. You're out of your mind, Claire. You think you can destroy me? You'd be dragging yourself down too. You really want to be the woman known for ruining her own husband's career. I smiled, a cold, bitter smile. Oh, Jason, I don't care about your career. I don't care about what people think of me anymore. You made sure of that the moment you started lying to me. So go ahead, try to make me feel guilty, but I'm not backing down. For the first time, Jason looked genuinely afraid. He had always been able to talk his way out of things, to charm and manipulate. But now he was up against something he couldn't smooth over with a few well-placed words. You're really going to do this? He asked, his voice low, as if he was still hoping to find some way to reason with me. I nodded. You're damn right I am. I've put up with your lies long enough. Now it's your turn to feel what it's like to lose everything. Jason stared at me for a long moment, the silence heavy between us. I could see him trying to calculate his next move, trying to find a way out of the mess he had created, but there was no easy escape this time. Not for him. Finally, he turned, walking out of the room without another word. But as he left, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. I had been pushed to the edge, but now, I wasn't afraid of the fall. I wasn't afraid of anything anymore. As the door slammed shut behind him, I took a deep breath and sat down on the bed, my mind racing with what to do next. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about taking back control of my life. And I was just getting started. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts, finding the one person I knew would help me turn this into the kind of nightmare Jason couldn't escape from. I hesitated for a moment, but only for a moment, before pressing call. The line rang twice before she answered. Claire? What's going on? It was Amanda, the same friend who had hinted that something was off with Jason in the first place. She was a gossip queen, always knew the right people, and right now, I needed her on my side. Remember when you said something wasn't right with Jason? I asked, my voice steady. She paused. Yeah, why? I need your help, I said, standing up and walking over to the pile of Jason's clothes still scattered on the floor. We're going to blow his life apart, and I'm going to need all the dirt you can dig up. There was a brief silence on the other end, and then Amanda's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. Oh, honey, you have no idea what I've already got. The game was officially on. I hung up the phone, adrenaline rushing through me. Amanda always had her ear to the ground, and if she already had dirt on Jason, I knew things were about to get interesting. It was no longer just about confronting him in a bar or throwing his suits on the floor. This was war, and I was ready to fight with everything I had. I could feel the anger bubbling up again, but now it was controlled, focused. Jason thought he could sweep this under the rug, manipulate the situation, and make it disappear. He thought I'd eventually calm down, that I'd be too afraid to destroy our lives, our image. But what he didn't understand was that I had nothing left to lose, and I was willing to burn it all to the ground if it meant he felt an ounce of the betrayal I had felt. The doorbell rang, snapping me out of my thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone, and my heart raced. Had Jason come back, ready for round two? I hurried to the door, yanking it open, only to find Amanda standing there, her face lit with excitement. Let me in, she said, pushing past me like she couldn't wait to spill whatever juicy information she had. She tossed her purse on the couch and turned to face me, eyes gleaming. You're going to love this. What did you find? I asked, the anticipation nearly killing me. Amanda crossed her arms, a smug grin on her face. Well, remember how I told you something felt off with Jason? Turns out, I was right. And I've got proof. I raised an eyebrow, not sure what she meant. What kind of proof? She pulled out her phone and swiped through her photos before handing it to me. On the screen were pictures of Jason, none of them from today, but all of them unmistakable. He was with the same woman I had seen at the bar, his arm casually draped around her as they laughed together in what looked like a different restaurant. But there were other pictures too, more women, all different, all looking equally enthralled by my lying, cheating husband. How did you get these? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Amanda smirked. I have my ways. Turns out, Jason's been busy. This isn't just some fling. He's got a whole roster of women he's been seeing behind your back. I felt my stomach turn. I had suspected an affair, but this was a pattern, a disgusting game he had been playing for who knows how long, and I had been blind to it. I had been stupid enough to believe that maybe things could go back to normal, that I could confront him and fix this. But now I realized just how deep his betrayal went. You've got to be kidding me, I muttered, scrolling through the images. There was no denying it. Jason wasn't just a cheater. He was a full-blown serial adulterer. And that's not all, Amanda added, sitting down on the couch like she was settling in for story time. I did a little digging at his firm. Turns out, Jason's been using his position to, let's just say, persuade certain women into bed. Clients, co-workers, even interns. It's bad, Claire. Like career-ending bad. I sat down across from her, my mind racing. He's been sleeping with his clients? Amanda nodded. And that woman you saw at the bar? She's not just some random fling either. She's part of a much bigger mess. Rumor has it, she's blackmailing him, threatening to expose the whole thing if he doesn't keep her happy. And knowing Jason, he's probably scrambling to keep it all from blowing up in his face. A sick feeling settled in my stomach. Jason wasn't just cheating. He was tangled in a web of lies, manipulation, and now blackmail. This was bigger than I had imagined, and I knew that if I didn't act fast, it could all come crashing down on both of us. So what do? I asked, my voice shaky. How do I take him down without ruining myself in the process? Amanda leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with mischief. You don't just take him down. You blow the whole thing wide open. Jason's been playing dirty for years, but now it's your turn. We're going to expose him, Claire. We're going to destroy everything he's worked for, and he'll never see it coming. I felt a flicker of hesitation. I wanted revenge, but the idea of turning my life upside down terrified me. What would happen when the truth came out? Could I handle the fallout? But then I thought about the lies, the years I had wasted being the perfect wife while Jason made a fool of me. The hesitation faded, replaced by a steely determination. Okay, I said, meeting Amanda's gaze. Let's do it. Let's take him down. She grinned, leaning back into the couch with a satisfied nod. That's the spirit. I'll start leaking the photos to a few well-placed sources. It won't take long for people to start talking. And as for that woman who's blackmailing him, I think it's time she gets a taste of her own medicine. I didn't even have to ask what Amanda had in mind. She had always been ruthless when it came to getting what she wanted, and now she was on my side. The plan was in motion, and Jason had no idea what was coming for him. But I wasn't going to stop until he was left with nothing. No career, no reputation, no power. He had built his entire life on lies, and I was about to tear it all down. As Amanda left, promising to update me with any new dirt she uncovered, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of satisfaction. This wasn't just revenge, it was justice. Jason had made a fool of me for too long, and now I was going to make sure he paid for every single lie. And as I sat there, surrounded by the remnants of our life together, I couldn't help but smile. This was only the beginning. The days that followed were like watching a slow-motion car crash. Amanda was as efficient as ever, working behind the scenes to unleash chaos, and I sat back, watching it all unfold. The first whispers started within Jason's firm. Someone had leaked the photos of him with various women to the right people, and within hours, the news spread like wildfire. It didn't take long for Jason to notice. By the third day, I could feel the tension in the air when he came home from work. His usual calm demeanor was gone, replaced by a simmering rage that he tried, unsuccessfully, to mask. He barely spoke to me, but I could see the wheels turning in his mind. He knew something was wrong, but he didn't know how deep the knife was going to cut. On the fourth day, the storm finally hit. Jason's phone rang while we were sitting in the kitchen, a tense silence between us. He answered it, his voice clipped and professional, but I could hear the escalating panic in his tone. "What do you mean there's an inquiry?" "No, that's impossible. There's no basis for this," Jason said, his voice rising with each word. His face turned pale as the person on the other end of the line kept talking, and I couldn't help but smirk. This was exactly what I'd been waiting for. He hung up the phone and stood there, staring at it like it had just betrayed him. I could see the cracks forming, the realization that his carefully constructed life was falling apart. But I wasn't about to let him deal with this quietly. "What's wrong, Jason?" I asked sweetly, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Trouble at work?" He glared at me, his eyes narrowing. "What the hell did you do?" I raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. "Me? Oh, nothing. Just enjoying watching you squirm. It's amazing how fast things can go downhill, isn't it?" He slammed his fist down on the table, finally losing the last shred of control he'd been clinging to. "You think this is funny? You've ruined everything, Claire." I stood up, my own anger rising to meet his. "No, Jason. You ruined everything. You think you can cheat on me, lie to me, and then just carry on like nothing happened? Did you really think I'd just sit here and take it?" His face twisted with anger, but I could see the fear behind it. "You're going to regret this. I'll make sure of it." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Oh, I'm sure you'll try. But you know what, Jason? You're not the one in control anymore. I am, and I'm going to keep pulling strings until there's nothing left of you." He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, his phone rang again. This time, he didn't answer right away. He stared at the screen, his jaw clenched, before finally swiping to take the call. I watched as his face went from anger to shock and then, finally, to pure panic. "Wait, what?" Jason's voice cracked, and for the first time, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. "No, that's not. You can't be serious." He hung up, his hands shaking. I could feel the tension radiating off him, and I knew that something big had just happened. "What's wrong now?" I asked, leaning against the counter, relishing the moment. He didn't answer me at first. He just stared at his phone, his mind clearly racing. Finally, he turned to me, his voice low and desperate. "They're opening a formal investigation. Someone's accusing me of sexual misconduct with a client." I blinked, taken aback. I knew things were bad, but I hadn't expected it to escalate this quickly. "Well, isn't that interesting?" I said, my voice calm even though my heart was pounding in my chest. "I guess that's what happens when you sleep with half the city." "This isn't just about cheating, Claire," Jason said, his voice shaking. "If this gets out, I could lose my license. My entire career could be over." I crossed my arms, staring him down. "Good. Maybe that's exactly what you deserve." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing back and forth like a trapped animal. "You don't understand. This isn't just about me. If this investigation moves forward, they'll dig into everything. Every client I've worked with, every case I've handled. If they find anything wrong, it's over." I felt a surge of satisfaction, but there was also a flicker of something else, fear. Jason was right about one thing. This could go far beyond our personal lives. If this blew up, it would be public. Everyone would know. I'd be dragged into the mess right alongside him. But I wasn't about to back down now. "You should have thought about that before you started screwing around," I said coldly. "Now you'll have to live with the consequences." Jason stopped pacing and looked at me, his eyes full of desperation. "Claire, I'm begging you. We can fix this. I'll do whatever it takes. Just please, don't let this destroy us." I stared at him, the man I had once loved, the man who had betrayed me more times than I could count. And for a brief moment, I almost felt pity. Almost. But then I remembered the lies, the cheating, the humiliation. and any trace of sympathy vanished. "There's nothing left to fix, Jason," I said, my voice ice cold. "You're on your own now." Without another word, I walked out of the kitchen, leaving him standing there, broken and defeated. But even as I left, I couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get a lot worse, for both of us. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I was ready for what was coming next. The days stretched on, but it wasn't long before the headlines broke. Amanda had done her work well. Jason's name was splashed across every major legal blog, and soon, news outlets picked up on the scandal. "High-powered attorney accused of sexual misconduct," the headline screamed. My phone buzzed constantly, calls from friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years, wanting to know the juicy details. Jason had gone into full-blown crisis mode. He spent every waking hour on the phone with his lawyers, trying to control the narrative, trying to salvage what was left of his career. But it was too late. The floodgates were open, and the rumors were flying. Every whisper about his affairs, every inappropriate advance he'd made, every shady deal he'd cut to keep his secrets hidden was now on full display. And through it all, I remained a ghost in the house, watching as the life I had once been a part of crumbled around me. I wasn't sure what I had expected. Part of me had thought that revenge would feel sweet, that seeing Jason suffer would give me some sense of closure. But instead, I felt empty. There was one final blow I hadn't seen coming. Jason's biggest client, a multi-million-dollar corporation he had worked with for years, pulled out of their contract. It was the nail in the coffin, the one thing that would destroy any chance of him rebuilding his reputation. I watched him that evening as he sat at the kitchen table, staring down at the termination letter, his face pale. His hands trembled as he cradled his head, his perfect world shattered. He looked up at me, and for a brief moment, I saw the man I had married all those years ago. Vulnerable, lost, desperate. "Claire," he started, his voice barely a whisper. "I've lost everything." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. The damage was done, and neither of us could escape it now. As the investigation progressed, more details surfaced. One of Jason's former clients, a woman he had supposedly helped in a messy divorce case, came forward with damning evidence. She had emails, text messages, and photos, all pointing to a much darker story than I had imagined. Jason hadn't just been unfaithful. He had used his position as her lawyer to manipulate her, coercing her into a sexual relationship while he handled her case. The media pounced on it. Suddenly, Jason wasn't just a cheating husband. He was a predator, a man who had exploited vulnerable women who came to him for help. And the worst part? I hadn't seen it. I had lived with this man for years, and I had been completely blind to who he really was. The backlash was swift and brutal. Jason was suspended from his firm, pending a full investigation, and his name became a stain on the legal community. His colleagues distanced themselves from him, his friends stopped returning his calls, and even his family, people who had once adored him, were ashamed to be associated with him. And through it all, Jason tried to convince me that we could still fix this, that we could weather the storm together. But I knew better. There was no fixing this. Our marriage had been a lie, just like everything else in Jason's life. One evening, after another long, silent day in our house, Jason approached me. His face was drawn, and I could tell he hadn't slept in days. He looked defeated, a shell of the man he had once been. "I'm going to turn myself in," he said quietly, his voice hollow. "There's no point in fighting this anymore." "I did it, Claire. I did everything they're accusing me of." I stared at him, my heart cold. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I need you to understand," he said, his eyes pleading. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it, but I need you to know that. I'm sorry. For everything." It was the first time he had ever apologized, truly apologized. But it was too little, too late. "I don't care anymore, Jason," I said, my voice flat. "I've already lost you. You're just now realizing it." He nodded, the weight of his choices finally sinking in. And with that, he turned and left the house, closing the door behind him with a finality that I hadn't expected. The day Jason turned himself in was the day I felt the weight lift off my chest. I hadn't realized how much I had been carrying until it was gone. He was arrested on charges of professional misconduct, coercion, and several counts of sexual harassment. The news spread like wildfire, and soon, Jason Matthews became a household name for all the wrong reasons. I filed for divorce the next morning. The process was quick. There was no point in dragging it out. Jason didn't fight me on it, didn't ask for anything. He was a broken man, and I didn't care enough anymore to make things harder than they needed to be. The media frenzy died down over the next few months as Jason's trial loomed. I moved out of the house, packed up what little I cared about, and left the life I had once thought was perfect behind. It was strange. There was no relief, no sense of triumph, just a quiet, empty feeling, like I had survived a war but didn't know what to do now that it was over. Amanda, ever the loyal friend, checked in on me often, reminding me that I had done the right thing, that Jason deserved everything that was coming to him. But even as the trial date approached, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had lost more than just a cheating husband. I had lost myself along the way, too. The day of Jason's sentencing, I stood outside the courthouse, watching as the media swarmed the entrance. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to hear the verdict to know that Jason's life was over. As he was led out in handcuffs, surrounded by flashing cameras, our eyes met for a brief second. There was no anger in his gaze, no hatred, just regret. I turned and walked away, the sound of reporters shouting questions fading into the distance. For the first time in years, I felt free. But freedom wasn't the victory I thought it would be. It was simply the beginning of something new, something I hadn't yet figured out. And as I walked away from the courthouse, away from Jason and the mess he had created, I knew that I would never get back the life I had before. But maybe that was okay, because now I had a chance to start over. And that, more than anything, was what I had been fighting for all along.